Hey guys, it's Nana, and today I'm going to be talking about my favorite books of 2016. So today I'm going to be talking about the best books that I read in 2016. I ended up reading a total of 37 books in 2016, and I narrowed it down to my top 7 favorites. Kind of just an arbitrary number, but I went through my list and I thought, these ones really stood out to me for various reasons, so these are the books that I've selected as my favorites. I'm going to go through them in the order that I read them throughout the year, and I'll tell you a little bit about what they're about, why I liked it, and then share a quote that I really loved from the book. So let's get started. First up is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste, and when I was going through my list, I almost forgot I'd read this in 2016 because it feels like it was such a long time ago, but I read it at the very beginning of the year, which is why it's been about a year since I read it. But I absolutely love this book. It's about a Chinese-American family who live in Ohio in the 60s and 70s. It's about the death of their oldest daughter and how each member of the family deals with that, and also about their lives growing up as a mixed-race family in Ohio. And I just thought this was so beautifully written. Such amazing discussions about what it means to feel different, to be othered, and also just all of the tensions that can exist between different sibling relationships and also parent-child relationships. And yeah, this just wowed me. I loved it so much. I thought it was so poignant and so sharp in its observations. So the quote I'm going to read is about when one of the characters named Jack is asking Lydia about what it's like to be Chinese American. And Lydia says, "What's it like?" Lydia hesitated. "Sometimes you almost forgot that you didn't look like everyone else. In homeroom or at the drugstore or at the supermarket, you listened to morning announcements or dropped off a roll of film or picked out a carton of eggs and felt like just another someone in the crowd. Sometimes you didn't think about it at all. And then sometimes you noticed the girl across the aisle watching, the pharmacist watching, the checkout boy watching, and you saw yourself reflected in their stares, incongruous, catching the eye like a hook. Every time you saw yourself from the outside, the way other people saw you, you remembered all over again." And I just thought that quote was a great example of the descriptions of microaggressions that the characters face and being reminded over and over again that they're different, and in some cases people telling them that they don't belong. So this was an excellent read, and I cannot wait to read her next novel, which I think is coming out either this year or next year. Next, I picked Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi, and you guys already know that I love this book. I feel like I've talked about it so much. But it's about two sisters beginning in 18th century Ghana, and their lives take a very different path. One sister is married to a white man, and another sister is sold into slavery, and we follow their descendants throughout time as they travel all over the world and have very different experiences. So this is another debut novel that I'm just like how can it be this good? This one especially felt so culturally relevant because we're looking at this history that's basically repeating itself, and it is, continuing to repeat itself through the present day. So just such an excellent read. And the quote I wanted to read from it, let's see. One of the characters says, "Don't you see this war the Asantes and the British are fighting now and will continue to fight for far longer than you or I or even James can live to see? There's more at stake here than just slavery, my brother. It's a question of who will own the land, the people, the power. You cannot stick a knife in a goat and then say, 'Now I will remove my knife slowly, so let things be easy and clean. Let there be no mess. There will always be blood.'" Basically, the character is saying that, there's no easy fix to the deep-seated problems of racism and slavery and otherism. You can't just snap your fingers and make it all magically go away. So I think it's really important to, take this historical look and see how things have progressed, but also where we started from to better understand what the real issues are. So again, an excellent read, and it's a debut novel. A debut novel! My next pick is Jane Steele by Lyndsay Faye, and this one was just so much fun. This is a book that's inspired by Jane Eyre, so we have a lot of similarities between the story of Jane Steele and Jane Eyre, but there's a bit of a twist, and I just love the character of Jane Steele. She is smart, she's not afraid to state her mind, and she's not afraid to stand up for herself, but also she's vulnerable and has a very difficult life. When you see those cracks in the persona that she portrays to the outside world, you just can't help but feel for her, even though she's technically a serial killer, murderer, kind of a criminal. But this was just so much fun to read. I loved, again, the historical aspect. I love the way that she brought Jane Eyre into the story, but still put her own spin on it. So I thought I'd read just the first couple lines of the book, and this is Jane Steele speaking. Of all my many murders, committed for love and for better reasons, the first was the most important. Already this project proved more difficult than I'd ever imagined. Autobiographies depend on truth, but I've been lying for such a very long, lonesome time. And I just love that. I think this is one of those books where I started it and I was like, I'm going to enjoy this. Like, I could just sense that I was going to like this, and I did. So, good instincts, brain, but anyway, a great, great read. As I go through my pile, I'm noticing a lot of my books have some sort of historical aspect to them. And next up on my list is Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters. I've been meaning to read Sarah Waters, basically since I joined BookTube and found out about her, and I finally did this year. And I just love this book so much. It's about a young girl named Nan who meets a music hall singer named Kitty and falls in love. Really, that's just the tip of the iceberg, because so much more happens in this story. But, as a romantic, I just love the love story aspect of it, and also, these are two women falling in love in Victorian period, so you can only imagine how difficult it is for them. But I just love the love story and the descriptions of life in London, and also the backdrop of the theater setting, since Kitty's a performer. Just found the whole thing fascinating. The quote I picked shows Nan's, kind of realizing her feelings, and Kitty says, "Then I shall call you Nan, if I might." If she might, I nodded and smiled like an idiot. For the thrill of being addressed by her, I would gladly have lost all of my old name and taken a new one, or gone nameless entirely. You see Nan throwing herself kind of headfirst into this love. She can't really control it. She just feels so strongly for Kitty, and anyway, this was just beautifully written. I just cannot wait to read more Sarah Waters, because if the rest of her books are anything like this one, I just think I'm going to love them all. And the next book is by another author that I've been meaning to read for years, and it's In the Woods by Tana. This is about a detective, Adam Ryan, and when he was younger, he was involved in an incident in which he was playing in the woods with his friends, and something happened to his friends, and he was the only one to actually come out of that situation. His friends disappeared, and no one knows what happens to them. 20 years later, he's assigned a case in his old hometown. He has to deal with the memories of that incident coming back to him, and also try and solve the case he's been assigned. So, as far as mysteries go, I thought this was so good. I had no idea who had done it. French is just carefully constructing this web, and this is definitely a slow burn, but as details are revealed, I still was I have no idea who did it, but I cannot wait to find out. So I just thoroughly enjoyed this, just both as a piece of fiction and as a mystery novel, and I think it's a really great blend of those two genres. And again, I'm going to read kind of from the very beginning of the book, but this is Adam, our narrator, and he says, "Our relationship with the truth is fundamental but cracked, refracting confusingly like fragmented glass." And truth is such an important theme in this novel, as Adam wants to find the truth about what happened to his friends so long ago, and also the truth of what happens in this new case that he's given. But the truth can be relative, and there are different versions of the truth. So anyway, a really, really good read. Next on my list is a book that I just loved so much. It had me sobbing, not on a little life level, but still very emotionally invested, and that's A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I read this one around Halloween, and I'd heard such good things, and I agree 100% with everyone. I think this book is so beautiful, such a moving story, and it's about a young boy who has to deal with grief and with loss, and just a very difficult situation at a young age. And I don't know how you could read this book and not feel something. It's written for 12 and up, so that's kind of middle grade, but I think anyone could get something out of this because these are human emotions that we all have to confront at some point or another. And in this particular situation, Connor's at school and he's kind of been caught doing something that he shouldn't, and it says, "And for a moment, Connor was entirely alone. He knew right then that he could probably stay out there all day and no one would punish him for it, which somehow made him feel even worse." So, he's been given special treatment because of what he's going through, but again, that makes him feel alienated, that makes him feel even more alone because he knows that no one would be treating him this way if it weren't for what's going on in his home life. So, I just, it tugs the heartstrings, and I just loved reading it. And the final book on the list is the one that I finished most recently, and that's What Belongs to You by Garth Greenwell. So I haven't even talked about this yet in a wrap-up, but that will be in my December wrap-up coming up sometime this month. And this is a book that I've been meaning to read since January 2016, and I didn't read it until December. But that happens, of course. And it's about an English teacher in Bulgaria, and he meets a young prostitute named Mitko and starts up a relationship with him. So this kind of follows the relationship and what exactly happens there. The writing in this book is so good. So good, and I knew it was going to be good because I went to an author event in January and he read a bit from it, and I was just like, that's absolutely beautiful. So I just knew it was going to be good. And Garth Greenwell is also a poet, and you can really see that in the way that his sentences just flow so beautifully and so seamlessly into another. So with the quote I've picked, Mitko and the narrator are having a conversation, and Mitko says, "I could have been anyone. I could have robbed you. I could have taken your camera and your phone, your computer. I could have hurt you. Did you think about that?" he asked again, and he paused. He looked at me with his new face, which was capable, it seemed to me, of any of those things, and I wondered whether it was a face he had just discovered or one he had hidden all along. It's that question, can you ever really know someone? Can you ever truly know someone? And our narrator doesn't really know Mitko. He doesn't really know him at all. He only knows the personality that he's presented to him when they've struck up this relationship or transaction. There's so many interesting things going on in this novel, which I'll talk about it a bit more in my December wrap-up, but I loved it. I loved it a lot. So those are my 7 favorite reads of 2016, and it was a bit hard to narrow down. I wanted to include some honorable mentions, but then I was like, nope, gotta pick favorites of all the bunch. So that's what I've done. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I've mentioned in this video, or if you want to read any of them, and I'd love to hear what was your favorite pick of 2016, or if not your favorite, because I'm not sure I could narrow this down to my favorites. What was one of your favorite reads in 2016? I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching all of my videos throughout the year, for sticking around, even when my schedule has been a bit wonky, for interacting with me down in the comments and on Instagram and Twitter. You guys are wonderful, and I hope that your 2017 is off to a great start. If you want to talk to me elsewhere, I will leave all of my links down below. Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, I'm all over the place. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye! Oh, my cat is creeping under the couch right now. He just popped his head out. You can't see it, but yeah, okay. Stop being a weirdo, Melton. Next, I've picked... It got caught on my computer. When you have to read a quote 3 times because it stops recording in the middle of your second try.